Okay guys, for those of you who've been following this disassembly and repair from the beginning, you might remember that the whole reason for this was a washer which ate itself, ended up down here in my oil screen in three neat and easy pieces, and that caused the transmission to damage itself and so forth. So at this point I had to dig this far into the engine to do the rebuild, so to get the repair part in there, $7 washer, $700 worth of parts. So it seems to me that I would be insane not to inspect the oil pump while I was at it. Oil pump is down in here, just underneath this sprocket. It's driven by this chain and this gear, okay? I can feel a little something going on there. I don't know what it is. There might be a tiny piece of that washer actually down inside of the oil pump. So since I've got it this far apart, it would be nuts not to go ahead and pull that out and inspect it to see if there's a tiny shard of washer in there. Can't spend all this money and not do that due diligence. So this oil pump pickup tube right here needs to come out, held in place by 2 bolts. These are actually the same length, but one of them does have a little spot of paint on there. You can see that. So, and I noticed the spot of paint here, so I'm going to make sure that bolt goes back near that spot of paint. I'm not sure what the difference is. I'm looking at the length of the bolts. I don't see it. Maybe a millimeter. Looks like the same bolt to me, but we're not going to take a chance. This part up here is held in a boss by some rubber, and it was a little tough to get it moving at first, but it came out pretty good once I put a little pressure to it. So pull that oil tube out of the way, set it aside. It's our pickup tube. Then the pump itself is held in place by 2 bolts. Now these bolts are dissimilar. The forward one, they even make it a different color for you. When you take it out, you can see how long it is. That's a little Loctite on the threads. That's boogering that up there. We'll put some Loctite on it again when we reinstall it, but the rear one is not the same length. Loctite on that one as well. So you can see that you can't be mixing those up. Won't work, you'll damage the crankcase. So now this entire assembly should be able to come out, because this shaft is really free floating. I mean, right now it's sticking a little because of the pressure of the chain on the side of it, but if I lift that straight up together with my oil pump, the entire thing should come right up to me, and I'm going to do that. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to suspend the camera in midair to show you that, but I'm going to go ahead and pull them out, then pull this circlip off right here, and once the circlip's off, then I should be able to disassemble the entire. I'll have the pieces of the oil pump in my hand, and we'll just check it real quick, make sure there's no significant damage or a chunk of leftover washer in there to spoil my lovely rebuild here. So let me do that real quick, and I'll show you the parts of it once it's disassembled. I hate that I'm at a standstill again, but I'm glad I checked. There's the bore of the oil pump. Right, if you look at that pipe entry right at the bottom there, you see it's like a half circle. There's some little discoloration in there, and I went looking for the discoloration. I don't know, can you see that on my fingertip? That, let's see if I can get it to focus. That is babbit. There's little teeny shards of metal. And when I disassemble the pump itself, wherever I put it here we go. If you look at it, it's got an eccentric, right? And the shaft, as it rotates, it travels eccentrically and traps oil, and the oil's trapped, so it has to scoosh out. That's moving the oil in a positive direction. If you look at the inner sleeve of that, of the pump assembly, that's not supposed to look like that. That is chewed and chewed and chewed, and it's galling is what it's doing, and there is no repair for that. You just have to replace it. So upset that I'm at a stopping point again, but I'm glad that I checked it. As long as I had it open, Can't leave it like that. That needs to be polished smooth, and there's no way to repair that. So obviously some metal did get caught in there and got drug around, you know, in the process of the pump running. And so I'm gonna have to get a new oil pump. Bummer. But at least we now know why it's acting so sticky like it was acting here just a moment ago. I was having difficulties getting it to rotate. There is a dowel right there on one of the bosses, so make sure you don't misplace that. And you can see that there's a home spot for that dowel right there. It's got a little recessed area. Not too hard to reassemble this. There we go. There we go. I'm just going to settle it back into position. There we go, all the way down. Okay, and then just sitting here trying to rotate it. It will rotate. I mean, it's actually pretty smooth right now, but I don't like the looks of that. I don't like the looks of that. Even with an oil film in there, I'm spending way too much money on this rebuild to ignore that. So I'm going to look up the price of an oil pump. If it's not $1 bajillion, that's going to get replaced, because I don't like the looks of that. So, until next time. Okay guys, I did a tear down of the oil pump. I thought I'd go ahead and show you the cadaver here, so to speak. The whole thing's held together with one circlip up here on the shaft, which holds everything together as a sandwich down below. First thing it hits is the gear. Then you've got a washer which sits on top of the housing right here, on top of the housing boss, like so. Gear sits on top of here. The shaft passes through and is held in place by the circlip. Okay, and additionally, if you look at it, there is a machined recess, and in that recess sits a pin which locks the gear in place. So as the shaft rotates, so does the gear. Okay, so actually it's the driven, this is a driven sprocket driven by that chain that I showed you earlier inside the crankcase. So because of the pin, forces the shaft to turn, the shaft extends into the oil pump, of course, and everything goes roundy. Inspecting the inside of the bore of this thing, it's just as bad as the outer rotor. You can see all these striations. It's hard to get a good bead on it here. Let's see if I can focus in on it. Might be too close. Let me try again. Yeah, you can really see that. And that's obviously due to babbit. Now, whether that all occurred as a result of my washer eating itself, I can't say. I'm just seeing the damage now, so I'm having to deal with it. This may have been years of not doing oil changes when he was supposed to, previous owner. I'm pretty religious about it. Some of these markings, it's hard to see in the video, but they're a full fingernail thickness deep. That's too much. And there is no, as far as I know, you just buy the whole oil pump as an assembly. You don't mess around with individual parts. That's your outer rotor, inner rotor, drive sprocket, washer, housing, and the two pins that hold everything together. There's another pin that holds the inner rotor locked to the shaft, so as the shaft spins, it forces this to travel in an eccentric motion within the bore, within the outer rotor, and of course that squeezes the oil into a tight spot and forces it to flow. So just wanted you guys to see that broken down. So I'm going to be obviously ordering the parts, and as fast as I can get them from KTM, we'll go back to this in another few weeks and try to start putting this thing back together. That's where we're at. See you next time. My friends at KTM Parts Pro out there in Arizona took care of me once again. Those guys seem to always have exactly what I need. It's rare that they don't have something in stock. So there's my new lovely oil pump. And we'll disassemble that just so you can see. That's what a nice clean new one should look like. I was kind of expecting to see about the same thing from the old one when I disassembled it. I mean, I expected some wear, but not like those marks that we're seeing on the other one. So, nice new one here, ready to go. Just need to reassemble it on the shaft and put that back in. And as long as I was at it, I mean, it would be utterly insane for me not to go ahead and get the chain. It'd be, you know, I'm all the way into this job. 46,000 miles on the engine, $12 chain. So new chain's going to go in to drive the oil pump, and I'll show you that in the next video, or later on in this video. We're going to reassemble this stuff onto the original shaft because the original shaft looks good. Drive pinion looks good. So we'll put this all back together and get her in there with a fresh chain, and then we can start reassembly of the engine. Okay, we're at the engine block, left side of course. New chain is on and lightly routed to where it's got to go. Make sure that you haven't misplaced your dowel right here. That is a dowel for guiding the oil pump into place. Okay, and we have two fasteners, long one and a short one. Long one goes on the right, short one goes on the left, and they both, as you can see from the remnants there and there, they both get a dot of good old Loctite red 271. Make sure you put it on there. I'm going to do that right now. I need the extra hand in order to do that. I do have an oil tube removed right now that you'll probably notice. There's the notch where it's supposed to be sitting. Okay, it's sitting right here on the table. I'll put that back in just a moment. For now though, let me set the camera down, and I'm going to go ahead and put my Loctite on the fasteners and reinstall the oil pump. Okay, the oil pump has been reinstalled, and all of the friction that I was feeling before when trying to rotate this, completely gone. Nothing. And there's not even oil running through it, so just imagine. Okay, there was quite a bit of friction and stick stop release action going on with the previous one. I don't want to run it too much without oil actually flowing through it, but it's just smooth as butter with the new components. So old chain is sitting there, and I'll reinstall my oil pickup, and we'll go on from there.